Hi, and welcome to another episode of Punk Rock Politics with John Smith. Let's get right into it. We got so much news to cover, and I'm going to be releasing videos, as many as I can today and tonight. Please go to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics and consider becoming a patron. The lowest membership is just $1 a month, and you get tons of extra perks. And if you don't like it, you can even cancel before the first of the month. I know times are tough, and I hope everybody's staying safe, but it looks like enough people are going to be getting some stimulus, and some people are fortunate enough to be working from home. If you're watching this and you could spare even just $1, it would really mean a lot. I need to know that it's worth all the effort I'm putting in, and that people actually enjoy this channel and think it's worthy of, help to stay afloat and get the right devices to do this in an even more professional manner. Okay, so this story from Raw Story. And by the way, you could do searches on Google Chrome and other main, like corporate search engines, Bing and others. But the problem is that they take money for advertisements, and you don't get the results that you really should. So you could be like, Joe Biden's missing and it's bad, and just get 30 articles about how it's not bad at all, and it's fantastic and he's amazing. And I learned that you sometimes need to use other services, other search engines. So I downloaded something called Orfox, ORFOX, and it also kind of is like comes in tandem with Orbot, I believe, ORBOT. It's definitely Orfox though. It's a search engine, and you have to download Orbot. And that the Orbot thing allows you to click on some or all of your apps, so that they the company or the government, in some cases or many cases, cannot track your IP address. So it'll just ping your IP address all over the world, so they don't know where you are, which is very important in a very insecure world, and where we give away a lot of our rights. They actually have recently tried to make it illegal to have these things called Tors, and try to sneak it through while the coronavirus is going on, and that is very scary. And I believe it was defeated, but we'll get to that story later. Not in this video, but in the next video, in a video down the line. I don't want to make any promises. There's so much going on, and this coronavirus thing is very scary. So I hope you're practicing social distancing. Keep as far away from your family, even and your friends as you can. Stay inside as much as possible. Talk to your neighbors. See if they're going to the store, if maybe you can get something, or have food delivered if you can. Bernie Sanders is doing a lot to help with charities for all kinds of workers, including musicians who can't play right now. And just a bunch of people, restaurant workers, etc. So, definitely check out Bernie Sanders' plan. He's involved with a lot of charities. He's collecting a ton of money from his supporters for charity, and really stepping up to the bat and acting very presidential. And we're going to show you why Bernie Sanders should be the Democratic nominee, and should have been all along, and was, until a whole bunch of crazy circumstances went underway, including voter suppression, and exit polls to prove that Joe Biden is getting votes where he clearly should have lost by a landslide, but somehow he crushed it in states he'd never stepped foot in, like Massachusetts, where he went up 65,000 votes from the exit polls, which is when the raw exit polls, only one company does this anymore. We stopped doing it on purpose. The Democratic Party stopped doing it, and mainstream media, and it allows both the RNC and the DNC to get away with just atrocious voter suppression and vote rigging. So we need to stand up. You need to look into the raw exit polls. I have a video about it, probably about 10 videos back or so. But yeah, the information's out there. And you can go to the actual company that does the raw data poll information. I'd have to check that for you. But let's get into it. So stay safe, guys. Wash your hands a lot. All that. Sorry for the long introduction, but this is really serious. So if somebody's not seeing all my videos, I kind of keep repeating it, because this is very concerning, and we need to beat this together. And we need to act smart and listen to the healthcare professionals and scientists, and keep all of us safe. So this is from rawstory.com. As hashtag Where is Joe Biden trends, Bernie Sanders to host coronavirus roundtable to address pandemic. Published 2 days ago on March 21st, 2020 by Common Dreams. And I'm considering, I'm probably going to release a video later today or tomorrow covering, I'm going to show Bernie Sanders roundtable and then discuss it after. just so you guys know, there's just so much information out there. I'm just going to keep pumping out articles today. So, yeah. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Punk Rock Politics. And unfortunately, make sure it's the right one. Somebody has it's actually Punk Rock and Politics, but unfortunately he chose Punk Rock Politics. I'm only seeing it now, but, I really love the name, and I hope this doesn't become an issue. I'm not sure who came out with it first, but when I did a searches all over the internet, I did not find it previously. He just plays music and stuff, and that's political, and most punk rock is political, so it's whatever. Anyway, while users on social media asked Friday why Democratic presidential frontrunner Joe Biden appears to be missing in action on the coronavirus crisis, causing the hashtag #WhereIsJoe to trend, Senator Bernie Sanders indicated his intention to remain focused on the global pandemic by announcing a virtual roundtable event focused on the crisis. The campaigns of both remaining Democratic contenders have been dramatically curtailed by the infectious disease, but Sanders, who remains a sitting member of the U.S. Senate, has been much more active and vocal on the subject of how to manage the outbreak over the last week, even as his presidential hopes have been dashed by repeated primary losses to Biden. Losses. Excusez-moi. I don't have all the fancy stuff to easily edit out when I need a drink. Like some of the guys I look up to that have been doing this for a while and have a lot of subscribers and patrons who give the money and people that donate tips when they do live streams, which I'm working on. Okay, so on Tuesday, Sanders released a blueprint for what he believes is necessary to fight the pandemic while also protecting working families and the nation's most vulnerable from economic fallout. It's called an emergency response to the coronavirus pandemic. The plan sets forth a series of principles alongside detailed policies that guarantee healthcare coverage related to both testing and treatment of the virus be fully covered at no cost, and it would establish an emergency economic finance agency to manage the crisis and create a separate oversight agency designed to protect consumers from price gouging and corporate corruption. Sounds pretty damn good to me. While Biden also released I just want to stop and say this. In the middle of this, it says, defend democracy, click to invest in courageous progressive journalism today. And you should check out Raw Story, and just support all progressive and investigative journalism or just independent journalism, honest investigative journalism, call it whatever you will. But really, it's just honest. While Biden also released a coronavirus action proposal, the plan took about coronavirus, COVID-19, and prepare for future global health threats, the former vice president has been noticeably absent from the airwaves despite largely being seen as a presumptive Democratic nominee. Biden has pitched himself as the best candidate to take on President Donald Trump over his presidential mismanagement and crass leadership, a critique that others say is now more relevant than ever given Trump's egregious handling of the coronavirus outbreak. As Peter Dow, Democratic operative and Sanders supporter, stated on Twitter, while Bernie Sanders leads, wrote historian Christo Avalos, Joe Biden is hiding. In this crucial moment, Americans need leadership, and they aren't getting it from the man already being crowned as the Democratic nominee. Journalist and co-founder of The Intercept, Jeremy Scahill, tweeted, we were all told that we desperately need Joe Biden's leadership and experience. Now all we have to do is find him. Let's repeat that one more time. We were all told that we desperately need Joe Biden's leadership and experience. Now all we have to do is find him. Sorry, you have to go past all these stupid corporate advertisements, but hey, people need to make money. It's a contradiction that capitalism puts you in when you need to have advertising that you don't agree with because you need to eat food. But they also, Facebook makes you have like 30,000 subscribers to your page. And a whole bunch of other conditions, and YouTube makes you have at least 1,000 subscribers, and X amount, 4,000 hours of watch time, and I need to get there, people, so help me out. In a Common Dreams column Thursday, progressive activist Norman Solomon argued that the coronavirus crisis offers a serious opportunity to compare the governing styles and ideological commitments of Sanders and Biden, especially as a contrast to Trump and the Republicans. According to Solomon, the differences between what Biden and Sanders are advocating have enormous implications for what could be done to curb the deadly virus in this country. The Biden versus Sanders versus coronavirus question, Solomon wrote, is not only an electoral contest between presidential candidates, it's also a contrast of patchwork fixes versus profound structural changes. Refusal to upset the apple carts of corporate power versus willingness to fight that power. Tepid adjustments versus truly transformational agendas. As people across the country increasingly realize that key planks of the Sanders agenda, from Medicare for all to paid sick leave to better labor protections, would make a world of difference in combating the virus, the shortcomings of the status quo, including the nation's tattered safety net and the bottomless greed of its for-profit healthcare system, are also coming into sharp relief. On Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Sanders is scheduled to host a virtual roundtable on the economic and health crises created by the coronavirus outbreak. Sanders will speak to viewers live from his campaign office in Burlington, and be joined remotely, according to the campaign, by leaders who are on the front lines of the fight to ensure working people aren't left behind in the response to the crisis. Here is Bernie Sanders' plan. It's called An Emergency Response to the Coronavirus Pandemic. It's actually on berniesanders.com. So here we go. In terms of potential deaths and the impact on our economy, the crisis we face from coronavirus is on the scale of a major war, and we must act accordingly. We must begin thinking on a scale comparable to the threat and make sure that we are protecting working people, low-income people, and the most vulnerable communities, not just giant corporations in Wall Street. Now, I'm definitely going to probably do a video, like I said, tonight or tomorrow, covering Bernie Sanders' roundtable, which also had other guests, and then give some analysis. It's either going to be tonight or tomorrow. There's so much news out there I'm going to get to you guys. I'm going to do the best I can. So number one part of his plan, Bernie Sanders' plan to deal with the coronavirus. Again, it's called An Emergency Response to the Coronavirus Pandemic. 1. Empower Medicare to lead healthcare response. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services will receive all the federal funding necessary to ensure universal emergency health care coverage for all, regardless of income or immigration status. CMS will work with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, other federal agencies, and the private sector to centralize information about what's needed and direct resources to ensure that all healthcare needs are met at no charge for the duration of the crisis. Cover all healthcare treatment for free, including coronavirus testing, treatment, and the eventual vaccine. Under this proposal, Medicare will ensure that everyone in America, regardless of existing coverage, can receive the healthcare they need during this crisis. We cannot live in a nation where if you have the money, you get the treatment you need to survive. But if you're working class or poor, you get to the end of the line. That is morally unacceptable. Greatly increase our healthcare capacity to handle a surge in cases. There is a major shortage of ICU units and ventilators that are needed to respond to the crisis. The federal government must work aggressively with the private sector to make sure that this equipment is available to hospitals and the rest of the medical community. Increase provider capacity. Our current healthcare system does not have the doctors and nurses we currently need. We are understaffed. During this crisis, we need to mobilize medical residents, retired medical professionals, and other medical personnel to help us deal with this crisis. Implement successful testing models. Implement successful testing models. Our testing capacity and process has been woefully inadequate. We must massively increase the availability of test kits for the coronavirus and the speed at which the tests are processed. We must look to successful coronavirus testing models in other countries and implement best practices here. That's what we should do with all policy. Look to other countries, see what policies they use when they're successful and what policies fail, and not use them, use the ones that succeed, especially when they're so popular and commonplace as something like Medicare for all. In fact, we should go further and have a national, like the NIS, I believe it's called, the National Insurance System or whatever, in England, or London, in England, the UK, whatever you want to call it. Bernie Sanders continues with his plan here on his website. Use the Defense Production Act to mobilize resources. Under this proposal, we will use existing emergency authority to dramatically scale up production in the United States of critical supplies such as masks, ventilators, and protective equipment for healthcare workers. So far, Trump has said he has invoked it, but said it's only voluntary, which is not the point of it. We built the world's biggest middle class by invoking this in World War II. And we mobilized a bunch. We closed down. They stopped making cars. They stopped making things we didn't need or didn't need so many of, clothes, all these other things. And we used the factories and trained the workers to make munitions for World War II to fight, Nazis and fascism. So Trump is trying to win brownie points here for an election, and he's doing so misleadingly, like telling you he, activated the Defense Production Act. And then saying, but it's voluntary. That's not that you activated it, but you're not using it. So he said like Tesla and I forget the other company are voluntarily doing it. Okay, great. We need way more than that to stop this crisis and stop suffering and stop the risk to everyone inside and outside our borders. It's absurd. Just letting you know what's really going on in case you get confused with all this. That's what I'm here for. Utilize the National Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, and other military resources. Several governors have already called in state National Guard forces. Our armed forces are trained for emergency response and must be immediately activated to build mobile hospitals and testing facilities, assist providers, reopen hospitals that have been shut down, and expand our healthcare capacity in at-risk areas. Dramatically expand community health centers. Pass emergency funding to dramatically expand access to community health centers, which provide primary dental and mental health care, as well as low-cost prescription drugs, to nearly 30 million Americans, 63% of whom are racial and ethnic minorities. We need to greatly expand our primary health care capabilities in this country, and that includes expanding community health care centers. Keep health care workers safe. We need to make sure that doctors, nurses, and medical professionals have the instructions and personal protective equipment that they need. Ensure federal funding parity for the territories and tribes for any and all healthcare relief programs. Very important. Yeah. 2. Establish an emergency economic crisis finance agency to manage the economic crisis. This emergency agency, modeled after the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, will be empowered to cover affected businesses' payroll, make 0% loans and loan guarantees to businesses, finance new construction of factories, emergency shelters, and production of emergency supplies such as masks and ventilators, and create new jobs and economic development. This agency will provide all the necessary funding for fighting this economic crisis. Keep workers on payroll. Small and medium-sized businesses, especially those in severely impacted industries such as restaurants, bars, and local retail, need immediate relief. We must tell these businesses who are being forced to lay off their entire staff or possibly even shut down through no fault of their own that we will not allow them to go out of business. The federal government will work with affected businesses to provide direct payroll costs for small and medium-sized businesses to keep workers employed until this crisis has passed. We will provide all necessary assistance, including tax deferrals, utility payment suspension, rental assistance, affordable loans, and eviction protection for struggling businesses. When this crisis passes, we will be ready to start our economy up again without the risk of losing the stores and restaurants integral to our communities. None of this financial assistance shall be used for executive bonuses, stock buybacks, or profiteering. Provide direct emergency $2,000 cash payments to every person in America every month for the duration of the crisis. We are likely already in a recession. Workers are losing income while their bills pile up. We must begin issuing cash payments of $2,000 a month for every person in America to provide households with the assistance they need to pay their bills and take care of their families. Under this plan, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, the Treasury Department, credit unions, community banks, and other financial institutions will work together to make sure this assistance reaches every American as quickly as possible. Millions of Americans are unbanked or underbanked, and hundreds of thousands have no permanent address. We must make sure we are getting this money into the hands of the most vulnerable. It is key that we get this money out and to families as soon as possible, which means we must make the payments universal with little bureaucracy. For those who will not need their payments, we will partner with organizations to take donations from patriotic families who can contribute their payments to fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Beautiful. Because once you take it away from one person and they just want to take it away from everybody, there's a bunch of arguments and nothing gets done and there is no $2,000 check. And we all need that desperately. Well, most of us. And the ones that don't can give it to charity, like you said, and absolutely should. And there will be scrutiny if they don't. From people like me and plenty others. Expand unemployment insurance. We must provide emergency unemployment assistance to anyone who loses their job through no fault of their own. Under this proposal, everyone who loses a job must qualify for unemployment compensation at 100% of their prior salary, with a cap of $75,000 a year. So again, under this proposal, everyone who loses a job must qualify for unemployment compensation at 100% of their prior salary with a cap of $75,000 a year. Protect non-traditional workers. In addition, those who depend on tips, gig workers, domestic workers, freelancers, and independent contractors shall also qualify for unemployment insurance to make up for the income that they lose during this crisis. Emergency paid family and medical leave for all. Anyone who is sick or who needs to stay home should be able to stay home during this emergency and receive their paycheck. At a time when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck and must go to work in order to take care of their family, we do not want to see people going to work who are sick and can spread the coronavirus. This is especially important for hourly workers who may not have any or sufficient paid sick days to avoid coming into work when feeling ill. I want to repeat that because it's so important. This is especially important for hourly workers who may not have any or sufficient paid sick days to avoid coming into work when feeling ill. If we do that, we'll spread the virus to everybody. Everybody's vulnerable. And we need to make Congress, the president, and everyone know that this is unacceptable. Joe Biden's plan is a joke. Anyway, who's leading? Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? Who seems like a president? Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? Who has told the truth throughout his entire career? Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? Who has only taken money from the people? Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? Guarantee that no one goes hungry. This is another part of the plan. We need to make sure that seniors, people with disabilities, and families with children have access to nutritious food. That means expanding the Meals on Wheels program, the school meals programs, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program so that no one goes hungry during this crisis and everyone who cannot leave their home can receive nutritious meals delivered directly to where they live. Place an immediate moratorium on evictions, foreclosures, and utility shutoffs, and suspend payment on mortgage loans for primary residencies and utility bills. No one should lose their home during this crisis, and everyone must have access to clean water, electricity, heat, and air conditioning. And we must restore utility services to any customers who have had their utilities shut off. We must also provide funding for states and localities to provide rental assistance for the duration of the crisis. Again, we must also provide funding for states and localities to provide rental assistance for the duration of the crisis. This is so crucial, and nobody's talking about it. So many of my generation, millennials and Gen Z, and even Gen X, Generation X, they rent. They can't afford to buy a home. Because we have given this administration, the prior administration where Joe Biden was vice president, and Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush's father, and Ronald Reagan have led us down a path of destruction of neoliberal right-wing policies that put the wealth for the people up top at far higher importance to the rest of us. Waive all student loan payments for the duration of the emergency. More than 45 million Americans struggle with 1.6 trillion in student debt. We must lift this burden during the crisis and for 1 month after. Long term, we must cancel all student debt and make public colleges, universities, and trade schools tuition free and debt free. Exactly. Construct emergency shelter and utilize empty or vacant lodging. We must ensure the homeless, survivors of domestic violence, and college students quarantined off campus are able to receive the shelter, the health care, and the nutrition they need and connect those individuals with social services to ensure nobody is left behind. We must also utilize empty hotel beds and other vacant properties to ensure everyone is safely housed during this crisis. Use the power of the Federal Reserve to support state and local governments. Through the power granted under Section 14.2b of the Federal Reserve Act, the Fed will buy short-term municipal debt securities. This will help stabilize state government finances and provide states and localities the financial support they need to address this health and economic crisis. Protect farmers. Suspend all Farm Service Agency loan payments to protect farmers during the crisis. Extend crop insurance and emergency loans to all affected farmers. Extend rural development loans, and expand the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TEFAP, to both help alleviate hunger throughout the country and support our farmers during this crisis. Ensure federal funding parity for the territories and tribes for any and all economic relief programs. Again, very important. This is a mouthful. I didn't realize this was this long. I probably would have made it a separate video. It's very important, and they go in hand. And this is a link from the prior article, which I am going to put. I'm going to put both links at the bottom of this video in the description. Create an oversight agency. This is number 3. Create an oversight agency to fight corporate corruption and price gouging. This is crucial, people. Listen up. Our response to this health and economic crisis cannot be another money-making opportunity for corporate America and Wall Street, like the one Joe Biden and Obama did with the financial crisis, and what George Bush did September 11th. And the bailouts. We need to establish an oversight agency to ensure no one is profiting off the economic pain and suffering of our people in crisis. Bail out working people, not corporate executives. Any emergency credit extensions or loans to insolvent companies or industries as a result of this crisis must come with strict protections and benefits for workers, unions, and customers. Not no strings attached handouts for executives. During this crisis, we will ban stock buybacks and bonuses for executives. We will put conditions on this financial assistance to make sure that any corporations in America that benefits from emergency aid does not lay off workers, pays workers a livable wage, provides equity to the government, puts workers on corporate boards, and does not rip off consumers. Very important. Prevent price gouging by pharmaceutical companies. As soon as a coronavirus vaccine is developed, it must be sold for free. Further, all prescription drugs that are developed with taxpayer dollars must be sold at a reasonable price. This agency shall use the federal government's authority to take away patents from pharmaceutical companies that are gouging consumers and allow generic companies to manufacture prescription drugs at a substantially reduced cost. The pharmaceutical industry must be told in no uncertain terms that the medicines that they manufacture for this crisis will be sold at cost. This is not the time for profiteering or price gouging. Finally, investigate and prosecute price gougers and corrupt dealings. This agency will have the authority to crack down and prosecute illegal price gouging and corruption. It shall also conduct an independent and transparent audit of all the emergency financing programs to make sure that American taxpayer dollars are not wasted. And it says to leave feedback, send an email to plan at, the little at sign. So plan at BernieSanders.com. Again, that's plan at BernieSanders.com. In fact, I think I'm going to leave that at the bottom of the link as well. And it says, sign up. This is your movement. No one candidate, not even the greatest candidate you could imagine, is capable of taking on Donald Trump and the billionaire class alone. This is only one way we win, and that is together. Add your name to tell Bernie you're in, and you should do that as well. For obvious reasons, even if you didn't like Bernie Sanders. It's pretty obvious maybe you were wrong about Bernie Sanders at this point, isn't it? Joe Biden's response has been abysmal. His policy proposals are ridiculous. He sent out a tweet the other day saying, we need companies to what was the word? What did he say? We need companies to say that they're not going to do stock buybacks, to declare they're not going to do stock buybacks. No, we need a law that they can't do stock buybacks, especially if we're giving them money. It's an absurd proposition to say, oh, we trust all you really wealthy CEOs because you're giving me money for my campaign, and behind the scenes working to do everything you can to thwart democracy and stop one of the most popular candidates in U.S. history for president. And definitely the current most popular senator in the United States for like 5 or 10 years. I don't even know. It's been a long time. He's ranked about 75% in most polling consistently. 75%. All right. So we're going to keep pumping out the videos. Just to give you an idea of how much work I'm doing. I had to redo this video. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. It's 4:47 p.m. I'm going to have to release the video later. But I'm going to release the first one I recorded now because it takes a while to upload and all that stuff and add the tags and everything else and write the description and get the articles in there. But I'm doing a lot of work to give you guys the truth, to give you a wide array of sources, including even decent articles from the mainstream media. And I'm giving you underground news, independent media, and commentary that you will struggle to find anywhere else. So please go to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics and become a patron today. You get a bunch of extra perks, and it starts at just $1 a month. And if you really don't like my content, you get to cancel by the first of the month, and you don't even have to make that dollar payment. How about that? That's pretty great, right? And definitely go to YouTube, Punk Rock Politics channel, and subscribe. Click all, or double click to get the little parentheses, or you likely won't get any of my updates. This way you'll make sure to get my updates about new videos and content put out. Become a patron. I still have yet to get my first patron. I really need your help, guys. Please, guys and gals, non-binary, everybody, please help me out. You're helping yourself, because I promise I will work tirelessly to get you the truth and to give you reasonable, honest, logical, fact-based, historically based analysis and commentary on what's going on in today's world. So, especially when it comes to politics and not repeating a pretty abysmal history. And I'm definitely going to touch on more environmental issues as we progress, but there's just so much going on with this coronavirus. And I'm glad I said that. I hope you're still watching. We need to remember that we should do this in an environmentally friendly way as well. And that always gets left out of the picture. So anyway, thanks for watching Punk Rock Politics. Like, comment, share, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and go to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics. And become a patron, become a member. There's so many tiers. Come on. Can't you just do it? Is it that hard, people? It's $1 fucking dollar. Just one. Don't be a cheap son of a bitch. All right. Thanks.